Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including four-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfala.
And Ray Alfala is a four-time champion of the NASCAR Peak-Antifreeze iRacing Series.
Three-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a three-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare two laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us here on Apex Racing TV for the conclusion, the finale of the Norwegian Sector League Blue Sector, coming to you from the Red Bull Ring. We've had some great racing throughout the season, and it's time to bring it to a close with two more races here on the relatively new track to iRacing, the Red Bull Ring. I have to say, to my co-commentator Johan, who joins me along with Marco Barbanera on the production. Johan, I have seen and driven in quite a few races around the Red Bull Ring already in its short time on iRacing, and I don't think there's been a single dud in the bunch, besides one official GT4 race that I got taken out of on the pace lap. But other than that, I think it's a pretty tremendous track, and I think these F3 cars are going to really have a good time around here.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Tyler. And if you've got downforce on your car, this is the track to be. We were here last week with the Radicals. It was super fun to watch. Very, very close racing. But I've also raced this track with prototypes myself. And as you said, it's an absolute joy. It's tricky on a driver, but if you can get those first few corners nailed, that middle sector of the track is just going to be absolute pure joy. So that you've got that turn number 3 Schlossgold, that's a really tricky one, but after that you're rewarded with Roche, Worth, and the right corner, right where you can actually run very wide, that second to last corner. So extremely fun. It's going to be it will make for some quite good watching with these F3 cars to see them go through there.
Absolutely. Last time out, we were at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. We saw wins from Steinbrutten in the heat race, and Ketil Larsen, who sits atop the standings in the feature race, That's a pretty substantial lead for Kjell Larsen. You can see in the championship standings on your screen, it's going to take a monumental effort and some luck, I think, for Simon Brunstad or anyone else to overthrow that lead. But regardless, it's not over till it's over, and we'll have to see if Larsen can defend that lead through the final 2 rounds today. It'll be the same format as it has always been, a 15-minute heat race, and then a 30-minute feature race with the top 8 starters reversed. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that battle for 8th place in the heat race. And Johan, all of the races that we've covered so far have had some pretty dramatic action in that mid-pack fight for the feature race pole, and for good reason, because we've seen some absolute carnage in the reverse grid feature race that has really shaken things up.
Yeah, and it definitely challenges you as a driver, because it's one thing to be good at kind of just drive away from the pack, and I mean, in the normal iRacing, that's kind of the status quo. If you out-qualify someone, you can outdrive them, then you're going to be set up for a very clean race. But if you're fast and you get placed to the back end of the grid, you're now sit with the challenge that you've got a ton of overtakes to make, and you now need to kind of approach it almost like you would a multi-class race, because you've got drivers that might be slower than you, but you still need to get past them safely, because it not only impacts your race how quickly you get past them, but also impacts your race whether you get that overtake done cleanly. Because if you damage your car, if you damage your wing, if you damage your tires, that's going to severely ruin your race for the rest of it. So it's that extra level of pressure that's being put on the higher end drivers, but that also gives a lot more experience for the middle of the pack, and that's probably why a lot of the racing there is so close and so intense.
Absolutely. We are into qualifying now. In fact, we're halfway through qualifying now. As is always the case in this series, the drivers will have 4 laps to complete their qualifying run. And as has been the case so far, we expect those times to keep dropping all the way throughout qualifying. So it's Isaacson on top at the moment, ahead of Araya, but don't expect things to stay that way, as Kjell Larsen puts in his first lap almost a second off of Isaacson. So not quite showing the speed that we saw out of Larsen at the Nürburgring yet.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky for some of these drivers, because some of them aren't really that experienced with this track. We saw it feature quite a bit in some of the official series, but for some drivers, unfortunately, it's not their strongest track. They tend to do a little bit better with something where other drivers have a little bit more challenge. Here, your level of skill that's required to do a very, very safe lap is not going to be too much, but to do an absolutely astounding lap or do it very quickly is just so much difficulty, because you've got so much less corners to really execute it in properly, because it's those first few corners that are really, really sharp, and then in that middle sector with, as I mentioned, with Rog, Rog is basically a slight lift, maybe a little bit of trail braking. Just after that is going to be basically flat out, and then you see how much speed you can carry in the rest of the corners. So it does get a little bit tricky.
For sure. Winding down in qualifying now, Grebstad has gone to the top ahead of Skarret, Jestrenbakken, and Isaacson. And looking down that order at our top 2 in the championship, Brunstad and Larsen, neither with a particularly stellar lap so far. Brunstad about 3/4 of a second off of the current provisional pole time. Larsen over a second back, so definitely some... Oh, that's a big spin for Skarret. Not the first one we've seen either. We saw a couple of drivers going off on earlier laps. So everyone clearly pushing to the max here. There is Simon Brunstad. See if he can pop himself a little further up the order as Helgerud crosses the line for what appears to be his final qualifying lap. And we have a driver going backwards there.
Yeah, so that exit onto Red Bull Mobile is just pushing the car's limits to the absolute max. That outside curb is not a friend of the car, and if you just stick it too far, you're going to be ending up with your wheels in the grass, and then you're basically just going to be an airplane on your way to a very, very solid wall right there. I'm just quickly looking at the points again. So the people that we really want to keep an eye on are going to be Yestrumbakken, Araya, and Scarrett. There you can see position 3, 4, and 5. So keep an eye on them during the race. Scarrett's actually doing rather well on the commentating times. Second on the list, and yet then Yestrumbakken is going to be there in 4th position. So Scarrett knows there's an opportunity to be gained here, and he's really eyeing up a good opportunity to maybe get the jump on Araya a bit further above him.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of strong performances the last couple of race meetings from Araya in the feature race. He's done well in the reverse, in the heat races rather, to put himself towards the front of the grid in the feature races and then convert those to podiums, I believe, in both of the feature races the last couple weeks. So Araya definitely one to keep an eye on, but maybe more in terms of positioning himself well for the feature rather than outright pace in the heat race. Though with that said, he is currently 6th and just 3/10 off of the pole time, currently held by Grebstad. Did mention Brunstad jumping himself forward into 3rd place behind Scarrett. Yestrumbakken. Now Larson finally puts in a, I don't want to say a competitive time, but certainly quicker than he had been doing. Jumps up to 5th place. Here is Hogland, one of the few drivers remaining on the track, including Araya, who is been bumped down to 7th with Larson's improvement, and not sure he's going to get the chance to improve any further.
Yeah, so now it's up towards that sprint race.
We have the starting grid there for you. It is Grebstad grabbing the pole ahead of Scarrett. Brunstad will start in 3rd alongside Yestrumbakken. Larson in 5th with Isaksen, who led early in qualifying, starting in 6th. Araya, who we mentioned coming off a couple of strong weekends, will start in 7th. Breivik in 8th. Knudsen in 9th. Andreasen 10th. Helgerud 11th. We've got Lokeland in 12th. After them is Wiesloff in 13th. Hogland 14th. Grimseth 15th. Slastad 16th. Lauritsen 17th. Bratton 18th. Hansen, Andersen, Solberg, and Loksen behind them as they are gridding up for the standing start here. We are getting ready to go.
Yeah, so the thing that has kind of been a recurring theme here for all of the races is going to be that getaway from the start. We saw a few positions lost. These F3 cars are a little bit more tricky on the throttle to get them going. But once they get going, they're an absolute joy. So just keep an eye out on that run, that right-hander on the first turn.
Just waiting on a couple more drivers to grid. Just Ketil Larsen, our championship leader, has yet to start. Perhaps planning a pit lane start or just trying to keep everybody on their toes and wait till the last minute.
Yeah, it's he's got a few options here in terms of strategy, and it all depends on what the field really does on the track. If they tend to bunch up, then you might be able to get something done with an undercut. But I'll leave the race.
He's on the grid now, though. Yeah, he's on the grid. The lights are on. I'm a little concerned about Larsen's connection. He seemed to be blinking rather aggressively as he appeared onto the grid, but the field is off. It's clean at the front. It's getting a bit hairy at the back. Will we see carnage into the first corner? So far, so good. Everyone at the front through cleanly. Looks like most of the field is through as well. Don't see anybody dropping dramatically down the order. With three wide on the run up the hill. It's getting quite feisty. This is another pinch point. Could we see contact further back?
Yeah, and at the back of the field, it does look quite feisty at the moment. Out in front, through Schlossgold, is looking fairly calm forward into the field. But as those cars from the mid-pack start piling through, it gets very busy, very close to almost 3 wide there. But everyone just positioning themselves rather carefully. Grimseth in the thick of things, heading through Worth, and on the run down to the right. This is going to be crucial to get that nice run through right, Red Bull Mobile, and onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, 2 really high-speed corners, especially in cars with some downforce. They're going to be nearly flat out through there. And you see everybody using the full extent of the curbing in the final corner. That is allowed. You got to keep a couple of tires, or I think at least 1 tire on the red and white curbing, but you can really kind of abuse the limits at that exit, and you'll see all of the quick guys at the very least using it for sure. Here's Araya. He's dropped down quite a bit from his 7th place starting spot. He's down to 14th place as we've got a car off. I think that is that Anderson? Yes, it was. So trouble for Anderson. And obviously something has happened to Araya to cause him to lose that much off of the jump.
I definitely agree. So Larson is being pressured here by Breivik. Breivik going for the switchback, trying to get the throttle down. And Larson is going to hold on to that position for the next few corners. There's not much room for a move here, but you can see Breivik just opening up the corner, just keeping a sight line to see whether there's an opportunity that he can capitalize on. Further down the
Grimseth working over Broughton for 11th place here as they're side by side ahead of them. That'll be Andresen and Lachlan, I believe, as we, oh no, sorry, Luxon is off. Where is that?
That was very, very deep into the gravel trap.
Yeah, that's a weird place to be that far off the track. He is, and he will assume last place from Anderson. Here we see Araya trying to move his way back forward. He gets through on Grimseth and sets his sights on Wislov for 12th.
Larson is yet again in a battle here with Breivik, still continuing side by side all the way down to Schlossgold. And this is going to be a battle completed on the brakes. We've got Breivik on the outside, Larson on the inside, and slamming hard on the brakes, and unfortunately contact.
And that's cost both of them there, including our championship leader. So this is what we were saying. This is what Brunstad needed if he had any hope of overtaking Larson in the championship. He needed Larson to have some trouble, and have to say that it looked like that was pretty much all on Larson there.
Yeah, it's very difficult because that corner tightens, and that's not really the place to stick your nose in. And you also don't want to be there on the outside. It's slightly tricky to assign blame from just quickly looking at it, but both drivers putting themselves in a very compromising position.
Yeah, it's not a normally shaped corner, really, is it? Because for a number of reasons, because you're going downhill, and the radius is changing throughout the corner because it starts pretty tight, it opens up a little bit, and then it tightens up again. And really, it was at that kind of first tightening pinch point that we saw the contact happen. And ultimately, Larson ended up the worse off of the two. Whoa!
We unfortunately had Brunstad getting very lucky there, just losing his front wing on the exit of, well, on the apex of Red Bull Mobile, but the spin already started in right. Araya now moving up in the field a little bit, quite high up in regards to when we checked in with him last, unfortunately.
But he's off the track there. Oh, well done to not spin it.
Some excellent throttle control there. Grimstead now fancies himself a little bit of a chance here, but is not going to get the opportunity, and now the door is shut for the next few corners. The back of that car just looks very, very loose. So he's got his confidence a little bit shaken at the moment. He's going to take a little bit of time to regain that. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle for him today. He's been the beneficiary of the contact we saw with Larson. He gained a couple of spots there and has been working his way back forward. But really, he needs to focus at this point on getting himself in good position for that reverse grid race. And he's not far off it. A couple more spots forward and he'll be on for the front row. And definitely feel like he has the pace to do it. There's Larson. It looks like he's got a little bit of damage to that front wing from the contact. As we see action here between Solberg and Solberg and Helgerud.
So that's a ooh.
That was Lauritsen stopped at the apex.
You do not want to see a car there. That's a Code Brown moment there. We've also had Bratton come into the pits for a new front wing. And
more trouble.
Solberg in a very difficult position there, stuck in the middle of the track.
Yeah, much like we saw in qualifying with drivers struggling and just kind of overdriving and spinning out, it seems like it's still happening in the race. So I don't know if the track is particularly slippery as we see a replay here. Don't know if the track is particularly slippery or the drivers are just pushing that extra little bit hard knowing it's the final meeting of the season, but definitely a fair amount of mistakes being made out there.
Yeah, I think the drivers might have thrown caution to the wind here and just decided, okay, let's really go for it. But there are some bumps on the circuit, especially when you start playing around with the curves, and just looking at the geometry of the corners, it's also quite tricky to really extract everything out of the car. So when the limit does approach, it approaches quickly. So the prime example of that is this corner here at Sloshkol. So you kind of want to get the car brake down very quickly and then get it onto the apex to get it turned in. If you run wide, then you can't get the throttle down and you get very, very close there to the gravel. And if you just get a millimeter into that gravel, the car's gone.
Yeah, certainly the limits well defined around here. Right on board with Andreasen, as he chases down Knudsen for 6th place. So both of these two would be in good position for the feature rate if they can keep this up.
Yeah, so I think Andreasen will just be happy with kind of holding on to this position right here. You might have a battle with Knudsen if there's a mistake. I think both of these drivers just want to hold on to their current positions. Meanwhile, Scarrett in 4th position has placed himself in a very, very good position. And then someone that's battling through the pack is going to be Hoagland. As you can see here, just behind Hansen with the number 18 car in front of him. Still trying to make up a few places as we go along. Right, Tyler, back to you.
Yeah, as they head up the hill, Hoagland and Hansen. It's not an opportunity to overtake this time for Hoagland. They'll set up and try for the next corner, but as we saw with Larson, not necessarily the best overtaking opportunity. Meanwhile, up ahead, this is the battle for that transfer position. The reverse grid pole currently held by Ragnar Wislov, with Lokeland and Araya behind, and Araya has really caught these two up, and it's not going to be long, I think, if he can keep the car under him before he finds himself in that reverse grid pole position. And then it's a pretty big gap up to 7th place, so that might be all Araya can really do without some issues up ahead, as we are quickly burning through the time in this race, looking at just probably 2, maybe 3 more laps remaining at this point, as this race is quickly winding down.
Yeah, it normally starts very, very chaotic, and then people settle into places, and then at the last few laps, you normally get those drivers that are just within reach of one another, saying, okay, right, let's go for it. Speaking of going for it, Luckland fancies a go here on the outside of Araya. That's going to be a very, very difficult overtake. He's stuck on the outside and he's going to try and get on the exit. But that run up the hill proving a little bit difficult, so he's going to keep in that draft. Araya trying to break the draft, not getting it done. And Luckland is now going to stick a nose up the inside on Strashkol. This is always dangerous.
Oh, and he spun it. We saw him run wide there earlier and he managed to hang on, and now he spun it and had contact with Grimseth there. And that is going to be certainly, I think, race done for Araya. Not going to be able to bounce back from that one. We ride on board with Grimseth and see what he saw in this incident. Just nothing really he could do there.
That's actually a very tricky position because you saw he tried to take evasive action and just kind of steered all the way into Araya. And I think that's what happens when you look at an accident and your mind just starts to immediately fixate on that point and you just involuntarily steer towards that side. So Hansen in a battle here fancies himself with a look. Sorry, not Hansen. Hoagland fancies himself a look, and behind them, Slashtad and Lorison also involved in a very, very tight battle, heading up the hill towards Remus. Slashtad pulling alongside Lorison behind them, and now Hoagland is going to fancy a look up the inside. This is going to be very, very close, and unfortunately we've got contact between them, and Slashtad and Hansen has to take some evasive action. Tyler, why don't you take us through that replay? I think we might have lost Tyler there. So you can see just the corner so restricted there, and you just can't get the car turned in if you're that close to the apex of the corner. So unfortunately, a bit of a costly mistake there for Hoagland and Hansen. I've got
and the drivers behind as well caught up in it. Just a messy situation all around, I think you have to say.
Yeah, there was a lot of heavy defending happening there, so unfortunately it just made the turn that much more difficult to make, and kind of a racing incident out of that contact. Hansen now heading to the pits with some clear damage to, I think it's his car suspension, so he's going to have to repair that.
Meanwhile, at the front, Von Grebstad is in a league of his own at the moment. He's got 4 seconds on Simon Brunstad, who you have to imagine is just kind of knowing that Larson is well back in the pack, although he has made his way back up to 13th. He's doing what he needs to do, which is keeping the wheels on the car and keeping the car in a position to get as many points as reasonably possible. We get the white flag for Grebstad, and barring some major unforeseen issue, it looks like he's got this one pretty well handled.
It's just now keeping it clean through all of those corners, making sure you don't. Grebstad is off the road.
Well, that is a commentator's curse if I have ever seen one. Grebstad had the whole race locked up and throws it off himself in the first corner. And suddenly, Simon Brunstad is looking in great shape here.
Well, the odds have been ever in his favor during this race, but let's just look at that incident again. So that's heavy braking for turn number 1, and let's just see what he does with the curb. So that's slightly touching the anti-cap curb, and on the outside, that's well done on his part to keep the car controlling out of the wall.
Yeah,
it
could be really easy there, Johan, to try and catch the car, but Grebstad knew what was going on and locked it down completely. And as much as it will pain him to do that and lose those positions, that was absolutely the right thing to do, to not risk further damage to the car. So a tough break for Grebstad. all of his own doing, of course, but definitely did well to minimize the damage. But Simon Brunstad, just a couple more corners, and he will maximize his points as he attempts to overthrow Kjetil Larsen in the championship standings.
Yeah, you see him very safely coming across the line. He didn't even use as much of the exit on that corner. He knew exactly what happened to his opponents earlier during the lap, so he made sure that he got that completed. Wislov over the line in 8th position. He is going to be lining up at the front of the grid for the feature race. Knudsen behind him, and then Andreasen on the 3rd position on the grid. So setting up for a nice little race. Big winner right here is going to be Brunstad. Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, as we have a few more cars working their way across the line. This is, you know, we said that Brunstad was going to need a little bit of luck and some solid performances to have a chance at the championship. And he's got both so far in the heat race. He'll have to hope, I think, for a little more trouble for Larsen in the feature, but it's far from over with that stellar performance from Brunstad.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you have to put yourself in the position to really be able to capitalize on those situations. And this is kind of what racing amounts to, is anything can happen at any moment. I mean, you're at the limit the entirety of the time. So going across that limit is very easy to do. So you need to be attentive at all times. So, Tyler, why don't you run us through the results?
Yeah, so your race winner, Simon Brunstad for Hadeland Sim Racing. Jestrenbakken and Scarrett round out the podium position. Grebstad, after leading the entirety of the race, brings it home in 4th, Isaksen in 5th. Behind them, Andreasen, Knudsen, and Wislov will start in the top 3 positions for the feature race. Then it is Lokland, Breivik, Slastad, and Larsen. Helgerud, Hageland, Lauritsen, Anderson, and behind them Solberg and Hansen, with Araya, Grimseth, and Bratton not finishing on the lead lap. So that is your finishing order there. We will have a brief warm-up session and then jump into the feature race. But in the meantime, we're going to throw to a very brief commercial from... Oh, never mind. We don't have the time for the commercial break here. So we are going to watch warm-up here as the drivers get ready for the feature race. Here's Jim, Robin, Bratton. And Johan, it's coming right down to the wire. You have to say, as far as championship excitement goes, you couldn't have scripted it much better, with Brunstad grabbing race 1 and Larsen having some self-induced trouble. They're certainly making it interesting for us.
I definitely agree with you that the last final stages have been blown open to some extent, but I also think in terms of the race that we're set up to have, there's a nice mix of drivers all the way through. You've got some faster guys down the pack with, unfortunately, some of the contact that they've had. So it's giving some other drivers an opportunity to start up a bit higher in the pack, to run defensively, and to get a bit of experience of trying to stay ahead of someone that might have some pace on you, but you do have that advantage in track position.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have the exact numbers for championship points, though if, Marco, you could pull up the championship standings as it was at the start of the race, I can tell you it's 100 points for finishing first, and Larsen was he 12th or 13th at the end?
It was fairly low down.
Well, the difference between 12th and 13th is either 37 or 34 points. So you look at what that gap was, and there's already been a 70-point delta. It is going to be very, very tight in this final race. And with the range of points that are given to the top spots, I'd have to believe it's going to come right down to it. So We are getting ready for the feature race. We'll get the starting order pulled up for you in just a moment here. It is Wislof from Knudsen, from Andreasen, from Isaksen, your first 2 rows. Behind them, Grebstad, Scarrett, and Jestrom Bakken. Race 1 winner, Brunstad, and championship contender rolls off 8th. Then it's Lochland, Breivik, Slastad, and Larsen. Behind them, Helgerud, Hogland, Lauritsen, Andersen, Solberg, Hansen, Luxen, Araya, Grimseth, and Broughton. So the 2, as they go green, it's a good start from everybody. Looks pretty clean. The drivers we're watching here, Brunstad and Larsen. That is the battle for your championship, and there's a car spinning in front. That could spell trouble for the contenders. We'll see if everyone gets through cleanly.
That looks like Andreasen who's gone off.
It was indeed Brunstad and Larsen, though, both surviving and both quite close to each other on track. Brunstad's going to need a little bit more, I think. If they can work their way forward, they'll be in good shape for the championship. But back in those positions, the differential between finishing positions in terms of points is close enough that it's going to be tough for Brunstad to overcome Larsen. So he needs to start working his way forward, but absolutely not out of this yet, as we see Grebstad moving forward around the outside of Slastad there. Just going to not be able to quite complete that. Slastad will hold on for the time being. And you can see Simon Brunstad in there behind. Oh, trouble at the front. Knudsen and Isaksen have come together and gone well off the track, which is good news for everybody behind them, but not so good for those 2. They were having a strong run. We'll get a replay here. Johan, what do you see?
Yeah, so that is, so Knudsen just gets the, I think I'm not exactly sure which car was in front of him there, but
I think it was Isaksen.
Yeah, Isaksen just stepping out, the car just stepping out that much more. Now contact here between local and some other cars, all kinds of chaos all across the lap, and we've now got a few drivers.
It was Brunstad. It was Brunstad that Lochland hit. That is the championship right there. Brunstad is in the pit lane in last place. So Larsen is also in the pit lane. So who gets out first? Larsen is out of pit lane. Brunstad working his way out as well. So they've come in, they've taken their fast repairs, but both drivers involved in that incident. And the championship picture is just continuing to get turned up on its head. So Larsen currently 2 positions up on Brunstad. And I'm just trying to do some quick mental math here, Johan, because that far back in the pack, it's really pretty much a point per position as we see the replay from Larsen's perspective.
Yeah, so I think Larsen earlier in that lap kind of had his car step out a little bit, and he got placed in the gravel trap. Now looking here, Hansen in all kinds of trouble here with 3 cars behind them. They're going to go through wide. He's going to dive into the pits, evading all of that. And now we've got Grebstad. Oh, and back there, I think that's Hansen getting squeezed. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just seeing a bunch of cars. Solberg and Broughton both falling down in the orders. That was very unfortunate. 3 wide out of the exit of Red Bull Mobile, getting squeezed. Lauritsen off into the grass. Someone behind there. Loxen into the grass.
So it is absolute chaos here at the Red Bull Ring. Wislof, though, enjoying the view out front. He hasn't had any issues whatsoever after a great start from pole. He's got Scarrett chasing him, but almost 2 seconds back at this point, and not really pulling any of that ground back.
Yeah, and if we look to what was happening earlier in the championship, Wislof, when we started the evening, was at 279 points. Grebstad's above him, 290. So there is definitely a big battle between those 2 as well. Yes, Bakken in 6th place, just sticking to the rear of Araya, and trying to just keep in touch. He does have a bit of a run, so we'll see what he does through into Red Bull Mobile. Nice wide exits. Now it's heavy braking, nearly clipping the curb, and then getting that exit as wide. Araya slightly faster through Rebel Mobile, so still a bit of a challenge there for Jesper Bakken. Tyler, why don't you take us away with what's currently on screen?
Yeah, this is Grebstad popping out as they head up the hill here. He's got the toe, he's got the run. He should have this done on Scarrett, and we'll see if Scarrett can make the move back into the next braking zone, because now it's his turn to take the toe from Grebstad. But clearly we know Grebstad has pace from race 1. He absolutely ran away with it. And you kind of feel like it's just a matter of time before he's on the back of Wislov.
I definitely agree. Wislov is going to be doing everything in his power to kind of just stay ahead and stay on track. But there is a battle to be fought out front. Jesper Bakken fancies himself a bit of a pass that's extremely close to be following through this corner right here. You kind of need the downforce to make that turn. It's 2 high-speed corners, so having that dirty air is just going to really unsettle your car.
Yeah, it's not an easy place to follow, and it'll certainly be eating up his tires. But Araya having a much better race this time around, sitting in 5th place. Though they are some 7 seconds off the leader, are Slastad and Araya. Here we see Grebstad pop out on Wislov, and that should be job done for Grebstad there. We'll see if he can lock this one up and not throw it away on the last lap this time.
Trouble is not over for Wislov yet. Scarrett going up the inside. Wislov is going to fall in behind, and it's heavy braking for Remus. Wislov trying to see if he can get some momentum on the switchback, but he's going to have to tuck into the draft right there. Slashdown in the middle of some action, unfortunately slow on the exit, and he's going to be in trouble here. So that's Jesper Bakken and Araya in front of him. Araya positioning the car on the outside. It's going to be very close to 3 wide, almost some contact.
I think there was. I think there was a little bit of contact there, but everyone keeps going, and Araya really pressuring Jesper Bakken here. Oh dear. What on earth happened there?
Yeah, that's not a position to be following that closely. He's lost the entire nose of the car, and it's just the back of, yes, I think it's Jesper Bakken's car in front of him. You can see as Jesper Bakken is turning in, the car's back end just loses grip a little bit, and that slams into the Araya there on the outside.
It's tough to see from that perspective, but it almost looked to me as if Araya just turned in as if Jesper Bakken wasn't even there. I don't know if he thought if Jesper Bakken checked up a little bit, and Araya wasn't expecting it, or he just mistimed his corner entry. But it certainly seemed to me like Araya was just unaware of the car to his inside.
Yeah, it might have been the case. Jesper Bakken slightly slowed down, because if you go at your normal speed through that line, you're just going to naturally drift towards the outside, because you're basically on half throttle, and the moment you start putting that foot down, you kind of determine where your exit is going to be. So Araya kind of expecting Jesper Bakken to get his foot down, so he wanted to tuck it behind, and Jesper Bakken anticipating the car on the outside didn't engage the throttle that early, and it just brought the 2 parts of the cars together.
Yeah, so Johan, if my mad math is correct, going into this race, it was a 6-point gap, Larson over Brunstad. Obviously, if Larson finishes in front of Brunstad, it is championship for Larson. But currently 8 seconds ahead of Brunstad. Brunstad hasn't really been able to close that gap down. He's really going to need some more trouble for Larson to have a shot at securing the championship, and in reality, he's going to need Larson to drop at least 3 or 4 spots behind, if not further, if they stay about where they are. So that's the current state of the championship. We look ahead at this battle between Grimseth and Hogland. Grimseth has got a great run out of the first corner and should have Hogland cleared by the time they get to the apex of the corner at the top of the hill. Does he? Just about gets it done. And it is Grimseth up to P6.
That's one way to do it. Auckland with a massive lockup on the inside, running defensively, but just not able to execute on that line. And it's a really tricky corner to try and outbrake someone on the inside line. So, Helgerud and was close to Slastad at the start of the lap. He's fallen back slightly. He's now got Lokeland to deal with behind him, but not in immediate trouble as of yet. So just kind of keeping everything together. Andreas in 11th place, and a massive gap between 10th position and 11th position. So we've
I think that's the difference between cars who have had trouble today and cars who haven't. You look at who's back here: Anderson, Isaksen, Larson, Brunstad. These are all guys who have had issues already today. Larson right behind this battle. He's going to hope they can keep it clean and not further jeopardize his championship chances. Isaksen and Larson teammates, I believe, so that should, you would hope, allow for some room to be given. But I think Larson knows as it currently stands. Oh, as that was Anderson going off there into turn 1. And now Brunstad gets through. So no net change between our two championship contenders. Larson stays one spot ahead of Brunstad, but is it all on his own? It certainly was.
Yeah, it's a very tricky exit out of that turn number 1, and I think due to how the fixed setup works for these races, you've got one setup for the entire championship. There might not be enough downforce for these cars, or the balance of downforce might be a bit far too much forward. So the cars might be struggling with that. Just the thing that I wanted to mention a while back, before Anderson had his little spin, those cars that basically had the huge gap in front of them, all of them had pitted except for 2. One of them being Anderson, and the other being Helgerud, I think. So the rest of the field, almost half of the field, have already been into the pits. But you need to ask the question: were they into the pits a bit too early, or was it a case of they got in just late enough that they were able to add enough fuel to run to the end?
Yeah, if you remember back to the Nürburgring, we saw drivers, I believe, pit in lap 1 of the feature race and have enough to make it to the end. So that's a very good point that I hadn't realized, but that could very well have been a scheduled stop for Larson. Brunstad, I believe, had damage in the incident, which is why he's some 7 seconds behind Larson at the moment. But both having completed their stop should, in theory, be good to go to the end. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on from here.
Definitely agree. The one huge surprise for me in this evening is going to be Scarrett. I mean, he's been absolutely on point for his performance during both the sprint race at the start and now the feature race. I mean, he's positioned himself very nicely to get some of those essential points. Into the pits, we've got, that looks like Slastad. Slastad is into the pits. Brosen into the pits for the second time, and then Solberg also into the pits now.
Yeah, so you figure these are the first of this sort of split the race halfway strategy group. So you get a good chunk of drivers who make their pit stops at this point in the race. Ooh, that looked a little sideways from Lochland up ahead, but he kept it under it.
So speeds well in excess of 200 kilometers an hour for most of these drivers. I don't know how Slastad has done it, but he's reached 309 kilometers an hour in his car. I don't know if that's an error on the software's part or whether he's just went absolutely flying at some point, because the max speed for these cars is going to be 230 kilometers an hour if you're metric. I do not know how much miles per hour that is for the American folks, but it is pretty darn quick. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that seems like it might be a little bit of an error there, but we continue to watch this battle. Helgerud has definitely closed that gap down. See if he has a lunge here into turn 1. Thinks better of it. They both go well over the curb, but keep the cars under them, as Helgerud will try and set up turn 2 at the top of the hill. Of course, I think it's turn 3 in actuality. There's that slight left bend counts as a corner, but still nothing doing for Helgerud at the top of the hill, and he will continue to look for ways to get around Buckland.
So up the inside, Grimseth is in trouble here, and that is going to be Hoagland moving off in front of him. Nice little overtake on the inside, very clean through Schlossgold. But he needs to be careful though. Grimseth does fancy a chance setting himself up for, I think it might be a Rheindt or Red Bull Mobile, running fairly close. He's fallen back behind now though, not able to keep up through Worth Corner, so not as confident in that dirty air, and it definitely shows. It is tricky to follow closely if your car is that dependent on the aerodynamic downforce. Still drafting, keeping up with Helgerud.
Oh, and that's Loveland off. Did he have help from Helgerud, or was that all on his lonesome? We've seen plenty of drivers lose it themselves through here, so yeah, that was certainly on his own. Just carried too much speed at Apex, and Helgerud says, thank you very much. Moves up a position. Well, here is your championship leader, Kid Larson, still following teammate Isaksen up the hill. Those two now in behind Helgerud. Oh, no, sorry, that's a lap car they're going by at the moment. As we thank Obelix Racing for subscribing to Apex Racing TV on YouTube. If any of you watching haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and click it. You won't miss any content from Apex Racing TV.
Yeah, so Andreasen and Anderson in a battle here on your screen. And then behind them we've got Hansen and Lokeland again. So Lokeland recovering slightly from the earlier spin. A few positions downwards. But Hansen has gotten away from him quite quickly. Now into Schlossgold. Nice clean entry, looking good on the exit. So some clean driving from Hansen there. He needs to keep it clean through this portion of the circuit. It's so easy to overpower that rear of the car. It does seem like the drivers have been struggling with that setup. The rear of the car being especially nervous on this track. Oh, and in front of him, that looks like Anderson only nearly misses him. Anderson doing well to slam on the brakes to keep that car from rolling back into traffic. Just looking at the replay here.
And of course, not the first time we've seen Anderson facing the wrong way today. Just loses it on his own. Certainly not the first time for him, and not the first time for most of the cars on track. We've seen a number of spins all over the track there. But Grebstad leads comfortably from the lead here. Some drivers seem to have made a substantial number of pit stops. I think that's a small error on the timing there. But do believe we still need to see Grebstad into the pit. Scarrett, Wisloff, Jesternbakken, Breivik, Hogland, Grimseth, Helgerud. I believe the top 8 have not made the pit stops yet. Isaksen and Larson, the first of the cars who have stopped.
Yeah, Helgerud being the last one. You're correct. I'm just surprised that Anderson hasn't hit it into the pits yet. He's the only car in the back end of the pack that's not really gone to the pits. So he still has an idea of what he wants to do with the rest of this race.
Yeah, we know these cars aren't taking tires on their stops, Johan. So certainly I think in past rounds we've seen the general strategy kind of be to run them dry. That way you're taking advantage of the car at its lowest fuel level over the course of the race. But obviously there are a mix of strategy opportunities that we've seen play out at each one of the feature races. And certainly this one has quite a wide variety. There's Christian Knudsen, who's gone for spin. I'm not sure where that is.
It looks like at the top of the hill.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. We'll get a replay here. Yep. Not the first driver to lose it on exit there either.
Yeah, that sausage curb, if he hits it, can just unsettle that car so much. But he already had the car bouncing all around the place when he came through the apex. Hoagland into the pits, Grimseth into the pits. So slightly late.
Getting towards the end of that pit window, most likely. Obviously, most of the drivers still circulating here, though, as we are about 2/3 of the way through the race. So 20 minutes in. Here we see Isaksen leading his teammate Larson still. He's actually put a bit of a gap on Larson. We know Isaksen was quick. He qualified well. Out-qualified Larson, or certainly was near, and did a stellar job in race 1 before some trouble here at the start of race 2. Wislov, though, holding on to that final podium position, though Jestrenbaken's been reeling him in rather steadily, and would expect that to change hand relatively soon.
Yeah, it's been interesting with the pit stops as Grebstad heads into the pits, and we've got someone in there as well. That's going to be Scarrett. So both of the race leaders now deciding to head into the pits.
I think we've hit the limit of the fuel here, Johan, as we see everybody up front diving into the pit lane. We'll see if Helgerud joins them. And if this truly is the limit of the fuel, you have to wonder for the drivers who stopped early on in this race, like Larson and Brunston, can they make it to the end?
I'm just a bit curious about why the drivers might be opting for an overcut in this situation, kind of running as long as they possibly can. I can understand the logic for Grebstad and Scarrett, because they don't want to end up coming out in the middle of the pack. But if you're in between and you're kind of in the middle of the pack, it might be advantageous to go for the undercut to get a lower fuel load for that race start, and to get a few fast laps in on the race start, get a few positions, and then settle in for your second half of the race, well, your second 2/3.
Yeah, well, worth remembering, Johan, that with a fixed setup, everyone's starting with the same amount of fuel, so you can't game it and start with less fuel to try the undercut that way. And with the longer fuel fill-up time, I think in general that usually rules that strategy out. I think ultimately, whatever strategy drivers choose has most everything to do with getting themselves out of battle, and that's really where most of the benefit comes from. So obviously the drivers running at the front in relatively clean air are going to be able to maximize their pace by staying out, and we'll see if the overcut is beneficial for them, but I definitely think that's where you see the strategy playing out.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, and I actually didn't consider the fact that your fuel load might also be locked in with your setup. So definitely a possible factor. Jestrenbaken trying to get the pass done on Wislov. They're side by side heading up the hill. And Jestrenbaken is in a good position to get the overtake done. Closes the door on Wislov, and he's going to be moving on towards Sloshko. Meanwhile, side by side, this is going to be Isaacson and Scarrett. So Isaacson moving up a position. I think he might have been able to manage that with a faster pit stop. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, the pit stop certainly a good portion of it, and don't forget as well that Isaksen's been running in clear air the entire race, except for that brief period he was in behind, I forget now, was it Anderson? It was one of the drivers who spun out of the way, but briefly in traffic, but by and large, Isaksen has been in clear air and able to reel off some very quick laps, and potentially just has a little bit more pace than Scarrett at this point. In fact, he's just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:24.7.
Has definitely set himself up quite nicely. On screen, you've got Lokeland battling it out with Lawrison. Looks like two teammates. Simon Brunstad in 7th position, so he's done a very relatively good job avoiding most of the chaos. And into the pits is going to be Lokeland.
Yeah, it should be one of the last remaining holdouts as far as pit stops are concerned.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, the race now settling. We're about 4 minutes out from final race time, or from the finish time of the race. At the moment, Grebstad is really done himself well. Oh, and unfortunately, that's Hansen off into the side there, just on the exit of Red Bull Mobile. So he's sorry, not confused myself with the two different cars. But yeah, Hansen unfortunately losing a whole bunch of time there. Grebstad 5 seconds in the lead. He's in that fortuitous position where he only needs to focus on keeping that consistency up, keeping everything going. I don't want to mention more than that because I do not want to curse it.
Yeah, need only mention his previous race to see why that is not a sure thing. But certainly the gap a little bit bigger, though it does appear that Isaksen is closing it down somewhat rapidly. That's now under 4.5 seconds, where it was almost 5 not that long ago. As far as the championship is concerned, obviously Larson ahead of Brunstad means that is pretty well in his hands, as we see Andreasen off the track, and we see trouble for Scarrett as Larson goes through. Here is, oh, just a small little slide that he caught well, allowed Larson through.
That's the trouble with that slosh gold corner, is when it tightens, you might have thought that you've applied enough of the brakes at the start, and then you realize it is not the case, as the corner just tightens up, and next thing you're in the gravel before you even know it. Fairly well behind Grebstad. I think Grebstad is having some flashbacks though. He's trying to keep it consistent, focusing as much as he can. As the rest of the pack also comes piling through. But a very, very neat drive from Grebstad. Looks very calm if you watch him like this. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, certainly looking pretty comfortable, and that gap is not coming down as quickly as it was back to Isaksen. I think he's going to get the white flag this next time around, so should be just another lap and a half more as we see a battle between teammates here. Araya behind Brunstad, and Araya does not attempt to make a last-minute lunge on his teammate, which is probably wise.
Yeah, Araya also, I just want to check because Araya is down in the standings a little bit. Just quickly checking in terms of the points. So Scarrett, of course, being one of the big names. We have taken the white flag that should start showing on screen in a moment. So 1 lap of racing left.
And Isaksen doesn't have enough fuel. Is that what it is, or is it drive-through penalty for incidents? That's the only other thing I can think of. We'll see if he stops in his box.
He hasn't had that many off strokes. Unfortunately, I can't see the incident points at the moment. That just looks like a drive-through.
Yeah, so either incident points or not serving a slowdown, but it promotes Larson into second place. Not that he needs it to secure the championship, but he'll take it, I'm sure.
Definitely agree there. So Reps that final few corners, 2 left, and we're all waiting with bated breath to see how this finishes up for the race leader.
I think it's a few more than 2, but he carries on nonetheless.
I apologize, I thought that was a bit further ahead than it was.
But regardless, it's only a couple more now for Grips. He has a significant gap, so he can afford to take this a little easily. Hopefully he will.
I think his feeling is also there's a few 2 corners too many. As now we're on the final 2 corners.
And he brings it towards the pit lane, waves to his virtual crew, and across the line, Grebstad claims the race win in the feature race at the Red Bull Ring. There is Simon Brunstad. Gave it a valiant effort as far as the championship is concerned, but it's not going to be enough. Araya serving a penalty on the last lap, potentially. I don't think that's allowed, so he will likely get demoted even further than he'll get currently in the drive-through pit lane. But Larson is going to be your championship winner. I think he was off doing donuts at the end of turn 1.
Yeah, and that's they've actually implemented the rule in the F1 that you're not allowed to finish to the race in the pits because some of the drivers, although no, I think this was a NASCAR thing where someone had their pit position just before the start-finish line, and then they finished the race by pitting on the last lap and just driving those extra few meters across the line because of the mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, that's been a thing in iRacing for a little while, so I guess that's the real world catching up. But yeah, that'll not serve Araya well. He will unfortunately be dropped further down the order than he already was. As we've got just the last few cars crossing the finish line, and then we'll get you your race results.
Just an absolute beautiful setting. Spielberg has always been a favorite, even a bit further back. We're having some technical troubles, so bear with us.
So
this is
Hansen has not yet finished the race. We will get the results to you once he does. He must have crossed the line just ahead of Grebstad. Or had some trouble on the final lap.
Yeah, I do apologize to Hansen. I didn't see you there on my timing boards, but Hansen making sure he finishes this race in the right way. Coming across the line, and a bit of a rough race for him. So he's going to be very, very glad that this is done. But he's gotten across the line.
So that will conclude the Norwegian Sector League Blue Sector here on Apex Racing TV. Here are your feature race results. Håkon Grebstad finishes the race in first place, and Ketil Larsen grabs second and does absolutely everything he needs to do to secure the championship. Behind him, teammates Skerritt and Jestrom-Bakken, third and fourth. Then it is Wislov, who ran a great race starting from the reverse grid pole. Simon Brunstad recovered to 6th place, but wasn't quite enough to put up a fight in the championship. Behind them were Breivik, Isaksen with his last lap pit stop, Grimseth, Slastad, Helgerud, Lauritsen, Andreasen, Araya demoted down to the last car on the lead lap in 14th. Then it's Lokeland, Hugland, Hansen, Knudsen. And Anderson, Bratten, Solberg, and Luxen rounding out your field. So we've got a number of drivers waiting for interviews, and I am going to start with our race 2 winner, feature race winner, Håkon Grebstad. Are you there?
I sure am.
Well, it was almost 2 smooth sailing victories for you.
Almost.
We we don't need to talk about the first race if you don't want to, but really we should, because it was a tremendous performance all the way until the first corner of the last lap.
Yeah, I think I just lost focus. Obviously, like I had enough of a lead to where I could pretty much just sail it home, but I kind of forgot about that and tried to do a quick lap, which was kind of silly. And yeah, the curb bit me hard.
It certainly did, but you more than made up for it in the second race. Kind of talk us through that first lap, because it was absolute chaos around you, but you seemed to make it through completely unscathed.
Yeah, I saw what was going on, and one car got hit in front of me, so I bailed and took the escape road to the left, and basically took the slowdown out there and served that without losing too much. I think I lost a couple positions down the straight serving that slowdown. Just reset and tried to focus on the task, and yeah,
it was certainly impressive. We have to say it looked like you had pretty much commanding pace out there. Just a track that clicked with you, or was it mountains and mountains of practice that did the trick?
Well, to be honest, I haven't practiced more than the hour that was available to us coming onto this race, and I was actually quite struggling with a few corners for like the first 40 minutes of practice or something, and then all of a sudden it clicked.
Yeah, it certainly did click for you. You drove a stellar race there in the second one to secure that victory as you worked your way back forward. And obviously, you ran a tremendous race in race one as well. But we've got a number of people to interview, so I'll keep it brief. Do you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Well, I gotta give a shout out to my teammate Øystein Hafjord, and yeah, that's about it.
Tremendous. Well, thank you for joining us here in the booth, and congratulations on your feature race win and your race one fourth place.
Yeah. Thanks.
And next up, Johan, I am going to grab our race one winner, and hopefully he's not too busy calculating the championship standings, because we think we have at least the championship winner, if we did our math right. Simon Rundstad.
I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you there. I probably didn't win that.
Oh no, we know it's Larson.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what the math said roughly, but yeah, I phrased that poorly. But you did win race one.
Yeah, finally
a
victory.
A little assist from Grebstad there, and I'll let Johan finish this one up.
Yeah, so welcome yet again, Simon. I mean, you've been here quite a few times, and I mean, it's been an absolute wonderful championship to watch, and hopefully also to participate in. What was the last round like for you, especially that final race? Bit of a tricky one by the looks of things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first race, I was prepared to go door to door with Larson. But he qualified worse than me, and he had an incident early on. And by then, I was just, okay, I'm P2. I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to push. I'm not going to do anything. Just make sure I keep Yestermarken behind me so I get all the points. And by the time we were headed into race 2, there was somewhere around 10 points between me and Larsen. And yeah, it sucks to get taken out like that in the first lap. That definitely ruined my chances, even though Larsen also had an incident, but somehow he was out of the pits 8 seconds or so before me, and he got to climb to the podium while I was stuck back in traffic. So yeah, that sucks, but I mean, he deserved the championship win this time, and I look forward to racing him again.
Yeah, definitely a very tricky start, but it's nice to see the level of sportsmanship between the drivers. And then from your side, in terms of, I mean, this was kind of the warm-up championship for the national series that you guys have lined up. do you feel like you're ready to get going, or do you need a little bit of a break after this race here at Red Bull Ring?
Yeah, well, I don't get a long break. We're back on Wednesday next week for the Nationals. We're going to Monza, and yeah, I mean, a lot of us have been training for 6-9 months for this championship, so it's going to be great to finally get it underway. And like I said, this has been a warm up, and yeah, a good one, I guess, for a lot of the drivers. And it's going to be really exciting to drive in the Nationals, where we get even more really skilled drivers as well, and see where we are compared to them.
It's already been very impressive seeing what the sim racers have done. But again, massive congrats for that. If I'm correct, P2 finish in the championship. From your side, any shout outs, people that have been supporting you that you want to say thanks for?
Yeah, I mean, my team, of course, even though my team manager Lewis, he threatened to run me off the road in the last race if I didn't pick up the pace. But other than that, yeah, the team, Lewis, like I said, Nico, Hoheim, of course, who has had technical issues and was unable to finish the season. And yeah, my coaches Suelio and Misha. That's about it. Before I of course have to thank you guys for excellent coverage of the series, both on behalf of myself and all the drivers and their friends, family, and fans that watch from home.
It's always a massive pleasure from our side. Thank you so much for your time, Simon, and hope you have a good one and good luck for Monza next week.
Yeah, thank you, and have a good night.
Thanks, you too. All right, Silas, so I think I might know who you're keeping your eye on.
Yeah, now that it has been confirmed, I'm going to go ahead and grab our championship winner, Kjetil Larsen. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm a little bit stressed. I had some computer problems, but yeah, and I managed to finish the race, and win the championship, so I'm happy.
Yeah, it wasn't all smooth sailing for you there today. Simon put some pressure on you with his race 1 win.
Oh yeah, I felt the pressure for real.
But you did manage to pull it off with a solid performance there in race 2. Was it always the plan to pit early and kind of take yourself out of the chaos there?
Yeah. When I had this lousy first race, then started so far behind the other ones, and then pit on the first lap and drive your own race. Don't be in traffic, so it worked out good.
Yeah, and not to mention you had your teammate pulling you along there with Usiksen as well. I'm sure helped you work your way back forward pretty safely.
Yeah, we didn't have any traffic, so we had our own race. I tried to follow him, but he was a little bit quicker than me today. So he asked if he's gonna wait for me. No, just drive. I have Steven behind me, so if I stay in this place, the championship will be safe.
Absolutely. And of course, Simon mentioned looking forward to the Nationals. Will you be partaking in that series as well?
Oh yeah. I have to take Steven there as well. I hope so.
Absolutely. So, well, you know, just looking back on a tremendous championship performance there, were there any particular races that stood out to you as really helping to seal the championship for you?
Yeah, the last race at Nürburgring. Before that, it was really close. So I think Nürburgring, my okay results there helped me a lot. Then I could afford to have a poor first race today because the gap I had to Simon.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's absolutely. Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck in the Nationals, and have to, of course, congratulate you on a tremendous performance here in this championship. Do you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, of course. I have to thank my team as always. It's awesome teammates. IGL Coatings, and our sponsors, Sanne Trafikkskole, and my family who let me do this thing. So without them, I couldn't be here. So thanks to all of you.
Tremendous. Well, thank you for joining us in the booth here, and congratulations once again, Kit
Thank
Larsen.
you. Thank you.
All right, we've got a couple more drivers waiting for interviews, Johan. So I am going to grab podium finisher today, Alexander Scarrett.
Hey.
Oh, welcome, Alexander, and massive congratulations. That's 2 P3s, heat race and the feature race. You're probably smiling from ear to ear with that one.
Yeah, it was. Both races were really good. I only made one mistake in the last race, really. So I'm really happy with the driving.
And then, in terms of the championship battles, we kind of pointed out that, at the start you were in a very, very close battle with. Let me just make sure that I'm not reading from the wrong person here, or the wrong name. But you were in a battle with Araya, and just slightly behind you as well, Nilsson. And you've just positioned yourself so nicely with these extra few points at the end. Were you hoping for something like that, or was it? Or were you very, very confident with this race coming up?
Looking at my training times, I was confident. I was fighting for a podium, maybe one podium, if I got a little lucky. But 2 podiums, that's over my expectation, really.
And then also just looking at the final standings, so you're part of the IGL Coatings e-racing team, and you guys took 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then there was an 8th as well. Unfortunately, that one had a drive-through penalty. I think that was Isaacson. So did you guys practice as a team quite a lot? Because it does seem like you all as a team really performed quite well.
Didn't really have any practice sessions before this race, so but we drove here in Apex League, so we practiced before that a few weeks ago, so we kind of remember from that. So
it's definitely turned out quite well. And then in terms of the track itself, we saw quite a few drivers struggling with grip on the rear end of the car. Did the car feel like it had some issues with rear grip for you, or were you able to adapt to it and drive accordingly? Well, of course you're P3, so you were able to adapt, but from your perspective,
it was a little hot, so I was practicing with a lower temperature, so the grip was a little lower than I was expecting, but I was more struggling with locking the fronts, not really the rear grip.
But yeah, massive job well done. In terms of the National League that is coming up, are you going to take part in that?
Yes, I will.
It's to be good to see you there.
Yeah, that's my first time driving against the big guys, so.
Oh, if you put in the practice like you did here for Red Bull Ring, you'll surely do quite well. From your side, any people supporting you, any people you want to say thanks to?
I really want to thank my team. It's a great team, and we have fun all the time, and we learn a lot from each other. So I really want to thank them all.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for your time, Alexander, and we'll leave you to go celebrate those 2 podium finishes.
Thank you. See ya.
We have one more driver who's waiting for an interview. Jim Slastad, hello.
Hello.
So 11th and 10th for you today, if my sources are correct, which it's our stream, so I would hope so.
Yeah, it is. We're good.
What? How does that fit with what you were targeting out there today? Were you hoping for top 10s, or is that about where you were expecting to finish?
Well, my expectation was not that high. I was expecting probably 15 or 13th, where I've been all the season.
Yeah, certainly takes some skill to capitalize on some of the chaos that was happening out there. Seemed like a lot of drivers were really struggling with rear grip in particular. Was that an issue you faced throughout the race, or were you pretty secure with the setup?
I'm not very secure or strong with the setup, so I felt very loose throughout the race, so I was very slippery all around. But the traffic, though, yeah, that was crazy all around.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we saw you in any of the incidents. There were a few, so it's a little tough to keep track. Did you mostly keep yourself clean, or were you involved in some?
Yeah, I was trying to keep myself clean. I was involved in one. I think it was race 1 that happened in the second or third turn in the hairpin. My car just went upwards, so yeah.
Not the way you want to be going unless you're climbing the hill towards turn 3. So,
yeah, that was crazy.
Now with the Norwegian Sector League complete for this year, how was your experience in the championship, and did you enjoy racing with everybody?
Oh, I think it was a very new experience. This is my first time in the league, and it's pretty awesome to try something new. So yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, do you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go here?
Oh yeah, I can thank you all for you guys, especially for hosting this View TV show, Apex, and Simon Brunstad for having the race seasons. So yeah, so that's all thanks I have to give.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us here, Jim, and hopefully we see you in some more events here on Apex in the future.
Oh yeah, that will happen.
Awesome. Well, that was Jim Slustad, everybody. And that will conclude our interviews for today and our coverage of the Norwegian Sector League Blue Sector for this year. But before we let you go, I want to let you know what is coming up here on Apex Racing TV. So first of all, Friday, which is tomorrow, we have the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship with the new Porsche Cup cars. That'll be round 3 at the Nürburgring GP circuit, coming your way at 7 p.m. UTC. Then we also have the Radical Racing Challenge Week 3 at Spa-Francorchamps, which I think we had one of our other Radical series there earlier this week, and some of the clips I saw looked quite exciting. So definitely one to watch. That'll be 9 p.m. UTC tomorrow. After that, on Saturday, we've got the Apex Racing Academy Formula Renault 2.0 Championship. Round 2, that's also at the Nürburgring, but that's on the Nordschleife, so that should be pretty fun. Formula 3.5 Championship Week 3 at Monza. That will also be Saturday at 9:45 p.m. UTC. We've got a really fun one coming to you on Sunday that I'll be a part of. I think Johan is going to be as well. And that'll be coverage of the 6 hours of Le Mans for South African iRacing. So those of you endurance racing fans out there, definitely going to want to tune in for that one. We've got the SRF Weekend Warriors round 3 at the Red Bull Ring. That's also coming to you on Sunday. The IGP Fun F3 VRS round 3 at Suzuka will be Sunday as well. XSLR, which is in their NASCAR Next Gen Cup series, will be at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That'll be Sunday night for those of you in the US, Monday morning for those across the pond. And Tuesday, we've got the IndyCar Open Series Round 4 at Nashville, and the Rikmatech Classic Sprint Series Round 9 at Imola, and the ARL GT3 Pro Trophy all coming your way on Tuesday, though the IndyCar and Rikmatech Series are Monday night for those of you in the US. And then rounding out the next week or so of coverage is the Ray Esports Racing League Round 9 at Sonoma. That'll be Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, US and everybody else. So that is what's coming up on Apex Racing TV. You can catch it all here on Apex Racing TV on YouTube. And the best way to do that is to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time we go live with all of our great racing series. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platform. As Apex Racing TV, we post clips of some exciting moments from our broadcasts and updates as to what's coming your way on Apex Racing TV. Definitely tune in for that if you don't want to miss all the action here. But that'll do it for us in the Norwegian Sector League here. For myself, for Johan, and for Marco, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.